everyone, and welcome to our April office hours. We are excited to be back with you this month. My name is Stacey Hatch, a product marketer here at GUIDEcx. I'm joined on today's call by Jeff Johnson. We're excited to have him back on office hours. Many of you have probably worked with him before. He's a technical solutions manager here at GUIDEcx and our resident integrations expert, so we're lucky to have him on. And then a familiar face for you, Cameron Crossett, product manager here at GUIDEcx, and we have an awesome show for you today. We're going to be kicking off with Jeff talking about backward dependencies and how you can go and set those up through our integration builder tool. And then Cam will also be giving an update on View as well as feedback and enhancements that have been made during our custom fields beta. And then he will be talking and previewing threaded messages. You may also see Chris from our product team jump on to talk through that exciting preview with you. We're really hoping that that will help streamline, organize, and enhance your communications experience, both internally and externally. As always, as we go along, please leave any questions, feedback, comments that you have in the chat, and we'll be able to answer those. And we'll send out this recording just right after we get it uploaded. We'll get it out to you. We'll kick it over to Jeff.
All right, thank you, Stacey. Share my screen here. All right, so I'm going to be talking about a complex dependency type that Recipe Builder enables. And it goes by several different names. I tend to call it backward dependencies. And what does it really do? It means it's the ability to set the dates of a task automatically based upon the dates of another task. So let's look at a couple of examples. So let's say you have a task that you need to order some party supplies, and you want to, or you need to order the party supplies before you send out the party's invitations. And you would like to have a dependency that goes like this. I want to start ordering the supplies 10 days before I start sending the invitations. So this would be what we would call a backward dependency. And if you think about the way that dependencies by default work in GUIDEcx, the dates flow forward. You have a task, and there's a task after it. And if the first task changes its dates, that ripples forward in time. But here, what we're doing is we're setting a dependency that's rippling backward in time. So if we set the date, if we set send party invitations, if we change that date, we want automatically for the order party supplies to change. Now, the same recipe that I'm going to be demoing here, it actually works forward in time also. So here's an example of that. So let's say you have a go live task, and we would like to send out a CSAT survey and have that task itself completed by 5 work days after go live. So that would be actually we're saying we're setting a forward dependency. But a slight subtlety how this compares to the default dependencies in GUIDEcx is, if you look at these dates actually here, so go live is going to be completed on May 17th, and the CSAT survey task is not going to get sent out. It's not going to start until the 23rd, so there's going to be a lag, and then it'll be due a day later. Now, you may recall that last year we published a recipe that we called finish to start with lag. And it implements the same dependency as I'm showing down here at the bottom, but it did require you to add an additional task to the template that we called a lag task. But now with this new enhanced recipe that implements the backward dependencies, it can implement this lag, finish to start with a lag type of dependency with no modification to the template. So with either of these type of dependencies, what we're trying to do here is to say we would like GUIDEcx Recipe Builder to detect whenever this task changes, we want it to automatically update the dates of this other task. Okay, so let me show a demo of how this works. And for the demo, I put together just a slightly more complex real-world example. And in this particular project, we have a go live task. And then there's three milestones leading up to go live. So we're going to have a project kickoff, then we're going to have some verification tasks, then we're preparing for a kickoff call, or excuse me, a go live call, and then there's actually the go live. And there's finally one thing afterwards, similar to the previous slide. I want to send out a survey to my customer. And the dependencies I'd like to set up are that the task here, conduct go live review call, I'd like it to be due 1 week before go live is due. And this task says define verification plan. I'd like it to be due 2 weeks before go live. And finally, this task way out here, the beginning, the kickoff call, I'd like it to be due 3 weeks before the go live. And then there's also a forward dependency we're going to show, which is that I would like the send survey to customer task to be due a week after go live. But in this case, I want it to start like 6 days afterwards and then to be due the next day. So let me show you how this can actually work in a live project. So here's the same template as I showed before. And can notice the dates right now of go live. So I've got my go live is set to June 28th. And so right now it is set up where all those dates are like they are, like I defined. So notice that the conduct go live review call is due a week earlier. And this defined verification plan is due a week before that. And the kickoff call is due a week before that. All these tasks are due in June. Okay, so let's say though that I get really aggressive and I say, all right, I want to pull this entire schedule into May. So I'm going to pull it in a whole month to make go live May 28. And so notice what's going to happen when I save it here. But first, I want to point out one thing. I'm setting the dependencies such that when I change go live myself, the recipe is going to change, say, like project kickoff. But then notice the two tasks below it. They're just using the standard dependencies that that you're familiar with in GUIDEcx already. So this task here, configure your product settings is dependent upon the kickoff call, and the connect servers dependent upon the task above it. So when I change the kickoff call, the tasks below are actually just going to update magically, just as GUIDEcx has always done. Okay, so we can see that happen. We're going to set the go live date. So now it's been changed to May. And if you just stare at the top tasks of these other milestones right now, their due dates are all in June. Okay, so they're starting to change. So now all of a sudden they've changed. So the kickoff call is now due 3 weeks before go live. Defined verification is due 2 weeks before go live. The review call is due a week before go live. And also, if you notice these tasks right here, they automatically would just set, the recipe didn't set these tasks. It would just set because the dependencies that you're already used to using in GUIDEcx are just letting the dates of these other tasks be set automatically. So that's how we can, anytime that we change the due date or start date of go live, it can change any of the other tasks that we'd like. So a few more things about this. How do you configure this? So let me show the simple example from a few minutes ago, where like in the first case, it was that we have this task called order party supplies. And what we'd like to set as the dependency is to start ordering the supplies 10 calendar days before we start to send the invitations. Okay, so there's a table in Recipe Builder that you use to configure these dependencies. And it makes it very easy for you to later customize it. If you want to change this, you go to this table and you define all your dependencies. And you read this table from left to right. So what this is really saying is, reading from left to right, I would like the recipe to update the order party supplies tasks start date to be 10 calendar days earlier than the start date of send party invitations. So the second example here is I want to complete the CSAT survey 5 working days after go live. So to configure that dependency, we're just going to have this row in the table that says reading from left and right, that I would like the recipe to update the complete CSAT surveys due date to be 5 working days after the due date of go live. And so just with that simple row right there, then anytime in that case go live is changed by whatever user changes it or whatever, then the recipe will kick in and change the dates of the complete CSAT survey. And also notice in this table here, this monitor task column, I'm triggering this recipe on 2 different tasks. So like in the demo I showed, I had 4 other tasks changing when go live changed. But you could have in this one table, you could have multiple monitor tasks, I call it. So the recipe is going to be listening for any change and send party invitations or in go live. So let me show the other example. I'm not going to walk through this in detail, but this would be the equivalent table for the demo I showed you, where I've got 4 different tasks that I'm going to change based upon when go live changes. And notice I can base the updates on work days or calendar days. And if I put a minus sign, it's backward. If I put a plus or no minus sign, it's forward. Okay, so kind of summarizing capabilities of this recipe, it really gives you a lot of flexibility to set the tasks due dates and start dates based upon other tasks. And it can work with work days, calendar days. It can be based upon task start dates, their due dates, and something I haven't mentioned up to this point, it actually can take into account holidays. So the recipe actually reads in 2 tables. It reads in the table I showed you in the previous slide of that's defining your dependencies, but it's also reading in a table of holidays if you want. So on that table in the recipe builder, you would just enter in any holidays that you want to have avoided. And what happens is when the recipe is updating tasks dates, it'll skip over holidays. So and you could actually adapt this holiday table to do things even like custom work schedules. So if you had somebody you're going to assign a task to, and they're only going to be working 1 week a month, let's say, you could set up this recipe, a holiday table here just for them, and have this backward dependency recipe, like a copy of it, that's just focused on their tasks, and so it's going to be only scheduling work when they're actually going to be around. And then one other feature that I didn't demo that you can use with this recipe is I showed how when I updated a task due date, the go live task, that triggered the recipe and it updated other dates. However, you also can just base it on a custom field. So we can configure it either way. You could, instead of editing a task, if you edited a custom field and put a date in there, the recipe can trigger and use that to go and update other tasks. And as I mentioned, of course, it can go forward in time, or the big thing is backward in time. And then finally, this recipe, which actually we call online complex dependencies, is available today. And if you go within Recipe Builder to the community, and if you search for like GUIDEcx dependency, you'll see a number of dependency recipes that we demoed first last year. And now also you'll see the set complex dependencies across GUIDEcx tasks. And that's the new one that I've been demoing today.
Perfect, Jeff. There's a couple of questions that have come in for you. The first from Elizabeth. She says, can the tasks that you're doing this on have traditional dependencies? Or is it part of the requirement to do this that the targeted task cannot have dependencies?
Yep. Okay. So I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. This is not replacing all the normal dependencies that GUIDEcx has, in the sense that in the demo I showed, I had a mix and match of the traditional GUIDEcx dependencies and the complex dependencies that this recipe enables. But if I'm understanding the question correctly, one thing that the recipe does is it removes the dependency of the task that it's monitoring. Notice there's actually no dependency on go live here. And it removes the dependency on the task that it's updating. And it does that just so it can do what it's designed to do of set those dates itself and not make those dates dependent upon something else. But if you notice here, the tasks below, they all have just the traditional GUIDEcx dependencies. So
Okay.
when you're thinking through how to utilize this recipe, it's envisioned that you would just be using the regular GUIDEcx dependencies throughout most of your project, and that you may have a couple of situations where you need to implement, say, one of these type of dependencies. Maybe it's something like, oh, we're just going to, when go live changes, I'm going to change this kickoff call date. And then everything else after that is just going to be standard GUIDEcx dependencies. That'll, and when I change kickoff, it'll just ripple through like it always has.
Perfect. Question from Jenny said, is there a way to display in the plan view that a special recipe is being used? It would be nice to see as a viewer of the tasks to be able to see what's moving those dates.
There's not necessarily a way to see that unless you use, say, custom fields to actually kind of communicate that to your group that lives in GUIDEcx. You could have like a custom field that's saying, here's a custom field could have a text that explains anything. You have a paragraph of text in it, but that's just one idea. It's a training thing, definitely. You want to, as the project manager, the person designing templates, you want to train your team to understand how this works, because it is unique compared to how GUIDEcx traditionally works.
Perfect. A follow-up on the question you just answered around can it have a task have traditional dependencies? Elizabeth said, for example, can define verification be dependent on connect customer to servers and also have the date dependency on go live?
So when you create the template, you could have defined verification plan dependent upon whatever before it, a task or this milestone in your template. And then what would happen is when the project's created, then this defined verification plan would just have its start date set by those traditional dependencies. But then when you do go and update this go live task, it will go and remove the dependency of defined verification plan.
Okay.
Because in a sense, the go live becomes the dependency, and so it removes any dependency you had in the template.
Perfect. I just want to call out too, there's some good back and forth going on in the chat, but as far as making your team aware of maybe what recipe this kind of backward dependency recipe is being used on a particular task, the idea is that you could tag those tasks impacted. So that's a great idea. Elizabeth,
Okay.
thank you. And
All right.
Bob.
Yep.
Kim asked, can you show how to access this recipe again? And then Emily asked, can we use Recipe Builder to use a holiday table when creating projects and setting dates?
But to access it, you can download it by within Recipe Builder. There's the button over here on the left. You see there's a button that says Community. Usually you're living in this Recipes button, but if you press Community and then Recipes, you can search for like GUIDEcx dependency. Then if you click on it, you can download it. What I would recommend is if you would like to utilize this recipe, certainly you can download it. It's right there. But feel free to reach out to your CSM and talk about getting a little bit of help to set it up, because just since it is a different dependency mechanism and it is very flexible, certainly we'd be happy to kind of talk through with you how to really use it. What was the second question, Stacey?
Around using a holiday table in Recipe Builder for creating projects and setting dates.
So the holiday table here, it is not defining the dependencies, but what it's making like exceptions really of the dates. So it's saying if in the other table, here we said, all right, I want to update the kickoff call to be 15 working days before go live. Okay, so the recipe calculates, well, what is 15 working days before go live? And what if it falls on April 19th, which you've defined as a holiday? Then it'll, the recipe will say, all right, I'm going to try April 18th instead. And as long as that's not a holiday or a weekend, because it always skips weekends, then it'll set that task to be April 18th.
Thanks for all the feedback and questions, guys. And thank you, Jeff, for demoing this new backward dependency recipe for us. Cam, take it away.
All right.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. Great to see you again. I'm going to share my screen. And it is great seeing so many people in the webinar that I've had email communication with and different conversations. We're first going to talk about the view as update, because I know Emily asked about that. This is one that you're probably tired of hearing it, and I can respect that. I get that, but we are very, very close. Today, the piece that I do want to show you is the way that interaction is going to work. We have it in our staging environment, at least portions of it. We've been trying to get it deployed the past couple of days, and so we are right there. But this is an example of what this is going to be like, where on the team tab, you can come in here and say, okay, I want to look at this user. I'm going to hit view as. And when you do that, hopefully staging is not having something deployed because it's taking longer than I thought. Okay. You get your banner up here. It lets you know who you're viewing as and lets you know that you're limited to the permissions of that user. And then what you see in here will be limited by that. So it is right there. The one shout out that I do want to give to our engineering team and kind of make you aware of is that this is a feature that, as valuable as it is and as simple as it kind of looks in here, this is built on brand new functionality that is basically bringing together 4 or 5 months worth of work, tying that together to make this work. It's not a feature unto itself. It's in our new architecture and a few things like that. And so we are close, and anyone that wants to be on it, we're going to escalate or shrink our testing time on it because we've been doing so much internally that once we have it ready to go, we're happy to give it to you, and then we'll put it into labs shortly after that. The other piece on here, I want to talk about custom fields. I'm going to make this pretty brief. I'm going to come back to this project tab because that's where the demo's at. But one of the things, customers that use our API, the API, the last portions of it are being built out this week and should be tested at the end of the week, and that will be available for use by you next week. And then when it comes to report builder, everything, we don't have any standard reports in our system that are built around custom fields. The use of custom fields in the reporting has always been either a custom report with Alma or the team, or through report builder. And so the week following the release of the API, we hope to have the data set in place so that you can have all of that reporting in report builder and know exactly what you're expecting. The one thing that I want to demo here, the screenshot kind of indicates one update that we made to the project details. One of our most popular custom field types is the link. And so we realize that you may be in a project and don't want to have to navigate back to the table to launch your link. And we don't want you to have to copy and paste. So anytime you're using the link type custom field, we've updated the UI there so that you can quickly launch that and be ready to go. And on this one, the project tab for customers, that is, let me stop my view as. Feels good to say that. Let me stop viewing as, that it's right there. With custom fields. So this is available for provider users to be able to see the custom fields in this tab. And you can see that we've got the formatting in there for numbers and percentages and dates. And we've got our option here to launch a document. I must have a slow connection. So I can launch my document that way. And then there's this piece here where these are the hidden fields. And this is what it looks like if you're a customer user, where those customer fields are, or those internal fields are hidden. So we're buttoning up that, and that will be ready to go with everything on the API and the reporting aspect. So that's what I've got for you on custom fields. Any quick questions, Stacy?
Yeah, there's a couple here. One from Elizabeth around view as and impersonating users. She asked if we make a note, will the note display as being sent by me or as the user I'm impersonating?
It's going to be tied to you. Like you can't do things on behalf of other users.
Perfect. And then Jill is asking for all of our old custom fields that are only text. I assume that we will need to create new fields to utilize the new field types.
Yeah, so when you're on it, what we do is we migrate all of your existing custom fields over. We create them as a new custom field, but they're created as the type as a text field or a string. So you'll have those same exact ones, but if you had something in the past that maybe was a date field that you were using, you will probably want to cut your line in the sand and say, okay, from now on, I'm going to use a new date field that has an actual date format and that type of thing. But you're not going to lose any of your old custom fields. It's just that it will be migrated over as a string or text custom field.
A good follow-up with that for you and for Jeff. If my current HubSpot recipe uses existing custom fields, will my recipe break?
I don't believe so, not after the migration, because it's labeled the same thing, but that is part of why we've held off on going GA until we have everything with the API in place and using those tools in the background. And so we will have a better answer here shortly, but we don't anticipate that there's going to be disruptions after that migration.
And then another question from Layla, in custom fields with the beta, when will the old fields disappear? I have the new fields with the data.
So when we flip the switch, before we turn it GA, we run a job that basically ensures that all of your old stuff gets synced, but it's as simple as a feature flag switch on our side, where once we flip it over, you have the new ones and they're instantly migrated over, and you have access to see all those same values populated that were there. So we're not going to necessarily, we'll put it into labs as well for time being before we force it for everybody. I believe that yeah, we're not going to force anyone into it too quickly, but we will have a time there where we test out everything with the reporting and the API before we force people into it.
Perfect. I know this webinar is only scheduled for 30 minutes, but if you guys can stick around, we'll give you a little bit of a preview into threaded messages, and we can dive into it deeper in our next office hours too, but we have some exciting things to show you.
Awesome. Well, good job, Cam. I'll share my get this going. In that preview that Stacy just mentioned about threaded messages, GUIDEcx believes deeply, first and foremost, about the importance of engaging customers in your projects so that things can be kept on time. And before, one of the main ways that we tried to fulfill that type of customer engagement was through our old approach to notes. where we initially had a vision that that was where we would go to document things, whether that was decisions or meetings. But over time, as we really tried to coordinate with customers, we started to add features. We added attachments, we added mentions, we added internal and public filters, and it kind of became much more of a chat feature. And we're proud about that because it's one of the most popular things we've ever built. And people really liked it because they could be in their project or task views. And instead of switching out of that context, they could just begin to communicate with their customers. But as it became more and more popular over time, we started to notice these pains from you, that there would be so much communication that was combined into a single feed that you would have to scroll and scroll and scroll to find that one message that was mentioned just a few days ago. And that would be really difficult for you to keep track of where you had made promises or where questions had been left unanswered. And really wanted to make sure that where so many of us rely on the level of flexibility of email to do formatting, that you could have a lot more flexibility there. So now we are led to this new world where we're pushing into threaded messages. And this new approach to messages is really putting communication first and having documentation be a distant second. And with that, we hope to make it so that even if you're a project manager that has many customers that you're working with, you can still keep track of all your different messages across all your different projects and tasks in all of your different threads and their associated replies combined into a single global inbox. And the reason why we think about this so much is because of you. Really, when we come to the community at community@guidecx.com, this is where we see the grassroots efforts of each of you voting for ideas. And one of the most voted for ideas is this idea of threaded communication. And so that's why we ended up creating a tile on our roadmap that you can get to in our support page. And of all the things that were voted for here inside of customer engagement, you can see that there's really only two things that were really standing out beyond anything else. And I want to assure you, every single comment in the community and every single vote on the roadmap of our support page is something that we will read and reply to every time. And that's why we ended up building threaded messages at this point, because the only thing that was even close to as popular as that was control around email. And that's why we want to make sure that even though you'll have the ability to have this real-time communication with your customers, that you don't also get buried in a large number of email notifications that might be perceived as spam. And that's why we put together a survey that we'll talk about right here towards the end and kind of see how we can balance the transparency of your communication without feeling like you're getting overwhelmed with too many notifications. So with that in mind, we jump into this demo and let me just show you how it really works in our staging environments where we're already doing this testing. Over on the left, you can see how we're trying to maintain our context and justify this existing in a world of Slack and Teams where we just know more about your work. We know more about your projects. So we'll create those. And as you dive into them from this global inbox, you can see all the messages from your internal and external teams. And as you're discussing the projects, you can go and reply back to a message from a while ago and say, it's in this context that I'm trying to talk back to you. And so as we're doing that, you can rely on much more flexibility in mentions and in formatting and in bullets and indenting and in inline attachments. And it's something that we think is going to be a lot more convenient than the notes that we've had in the past. And another thing that I really love is right there, as we're replying back and forth, you're not having to refresh the page at all. You can just rely on, as soon as someone submits a message, that's going to appear for you immediately and make it so that you have a lot more of that back and forth that might not rely on email as much. So after we have some of these messages, often the fastest way to reply is not even with words. You could just go in and say, hey, I just want to acknowledge that I have received the message. I've thought about it. I approve the way that you're kind of thinking about things. And that's why emojis, even though it might sound like a basic thing, really can be huge in being concise and quick and direct around responding to people's communication. So we have this detailed emoji picker that really can have a picture speak 1,000 words. And as we close that out, and we go more detailed into the composition of a message, we can make it as professional looking as we need to. We can go and say whether or not this ready to go message is true now, or whether it's something that we want to really tag as something that we want to save for later. And you'll notice up in the top left how that's an option to just go and pick up all your saved for later messages. And then as you're mentioning people, we can make sure that we have that trigger a different level of notification so that they know that we really do need them to review and respond to that specific thing. And if that thing that you're trying to ask them to do is to apply an attachment, we'll make it as easy as possible for you to have a preview of that attachment directly here in the threaded communication, especially if that attachment is an image, so that it's not some small little thumbnail, but something that's really clear and easy for you to see in the context of all the other written pieces. So this new rich text editor that we have is something that you're going to see all over the place. And threaded messages is the first place where you'll see it, but then this will also be the way that we start writing new task instructions and going into a lot more detail around documenting other pieces. And that's why we want to go even beyond just still images and then have basics like a GIF picker. So you'll notice up here in this toolbar, we can throw in different emojis, we can throw in different links, different bullets, and we'll be able to also make sure that you're able to get the files in a secure way that you rely on. And that's why this is something that we're really excited about to roll out to you here as an early access preview in this spring. So when we do that, though, it's called an early access preview because it will continue to be a beta for the next few weeks. And as we apply all this formatting and we really get familiar with the way that these messages are organized, then you'll see us expanding beyond things like this code formatting or these bulleted lists, and make sure that we also have parity with what you've come to really love about notes. And so that's where we'll move out of the beta that will happen in the spring and into our full general availability release that will be coming more in the summer. So if you're wondering, when does everything come? This is the quick summary. So this spring beta will have threaded replies, default channels, emoji and GIF reactions, that save for later tag, and all that rich text that you saw. But the things that you come to love about notes won't follow on until later in the summer, where we'll then allow the email replies to be imported as messages, the email attachments to be imported as attachments, and custom channels where you can have audience control of whether it's public or private. And then, of course, API support if you ever wanted to feed messages to other systems like Slack or Teams or email in your own way. So those are the things that we're fully committed to. The things that we're not yet committed to, and we're listening to you to guide us, is what we might do with expansions or long-term pivots. Like, should we really lean into it being real time to the point where you could see people's presence icons and away status and typing indicators to see whether they're actually reading and replying to you right now, or whether you want to come back to it later? And then after we've nailed all those things, maybe we look at other channels, whether that was driven by AI or video or pieces like that. So we're really excited for this. You can count on that GA, also including a migration of your old notes. So you can immediately just pick up right where you left off with notes. And at that point, notes will truly go back to their original purpose, more around documentation. So thank you for staying on late for that preview. We're excited to get this in your hands as a beta, and we'll be in touch as this is access for you.
Yeah, just a couple questions for you, Chris, before we go. Question from Mike. He said, does that expanded formatting plan include the ability to nest levels of bullets/number lists?
Yeah, that's indenting and nesting is so important. It's one of the most popular requests, and you can definitely count on that being there.
And Jill says yes to email import. So we're noting that, Jill, and we may send out a survey for you guys to get a little bit more feedback on that functionality you'd like to see next with threaded messages when we send out the recording. So thanks for joining us for office hours this month. Let us know if you have any feedback or additional questions, and we look forward to talking with you again next month. Thank you guys so much. See you later.